You got no sound, or you got sound now? What's going on? Has everybody got sound? Ha ha! This is Mountain Man coming to you from parts unknown. I don't know if that got through, but here we go. So let me see if I get any 5x5s. I might have a frozen up chat. I don't know. It's been screwy lately. I was on Nikki's and it was, yeah, hi, Aaron. How you doing? Oh, sound now. Good. Marla said you can hear me. Yeah. Yeah, Mike, I got sound now. Motto. Okay, good. Well, I was talking. I don't know where the sound was. My mic is on, but hopefully there won't be any more problems. Be creative with your keywords. See my banner going across the bottom? If your chat does not appear or disappear, check for foul words, keywords, and try again. Honest discussion appreciated. Haha, thank you, Shane. Yeah, I said, I don't know what was going on. I said, care, you have a question mark. Now I know what the question was. And I said, hi to Shane. I'll say hi again. Donna, Marla, with 2 cups of coffee. Ronald, Diane, Georgia, Mountain Man News. She knows I got that new banner up there too, Mountain Man News, because we're the news. We already knew. Ryder Day, Wanda. So Aaron, Marla, Wanda, Donna, Mike, everybody's showing up. Brighter day. That's good. Everybody can hear me loud and clear. Well, I want to tell everybody, and I'll say it again when more people get in the chats. Happy Mother's Day to all the mamas out there, and happy Mother's Day to all the chillins out there. I want them to have a happy Mother's Day too. I want them smiling. I want them hugging their mom and tell them how much they appreciate them. If you don't have your mom anymore, think about a beautiful moment. Put a smile on your face, okay? Because uh, many of us don't have our mothers anymore, and we want to think in a positive way about how lucky we were that she decided to go through the biggest job you could ever get assigned, which is to raise a human being. talk about it. Talk about a big responsibility, right? Hi, Mountain Man. Or what am I talking about? No, I'm not in the whiskey. Wolfpack, how you doing? How you doing, Wolfpack? So, Kirsten, how are you? I see the MM there. I right away think Mountain Man. But anyway, my last broadcast I cut short, and part of the reason was I was leading up to something. Uh, as some of you know, when I get into discussions that concern my family or things that happen in my life, sometimes I have a little trouble with speech. And I've seen it mentioned in the chats, and I've seen it mentioned in the comments. Uh, so I try to talk around things and get ready to where I can actually make sure I can get my point across and not have a problem. Uh, and that's I'll compare it kind of like with Bobby Kennedy. He's got I believe, congenital neurological issue with his vocal cords, and you know that can happen. And that happens with people for a lot of reasons. So sometimes I'll go around this subject, get myself psychologically ready to discuss what I want to discuss, and it got to the point in the live stream where I didn't feel there was enough patience in the chats, and I just left. It was kind of like a little punch in the gut, and I appreciate you all if you give me your patience when I discuss things, and if I am hammering on something, it's because one, I feel it's important, and two, I do want to prepare myself to get to a point that I think is very important in this in this fifth generation warfare. We may even be in a sixth generation warfare. And for those of you that were with me, you'll know I was talking about a internet personality that got himself in a bit of trouble. And for those of you who were not with me, I will give you a synopsis that a very prominent attorney by the name of Alan Dershowitz called out Scott McKay for his comments and his past broadcasts, which was drawn to his attention. Of all things, Rachel Maddow brought him up specifically. Scott McKay. And of course, went right to his most outrageous things he discussed, which I don't like talking about it, but he has talked about it, and I got to watch it because I don't want to get in trouble on YouTube. Thank you, White Lightning. I saw what you said there. I appreciate that. But anyway, about the Khazarian Mafia, the Jewish people. I've warned for over a year not to fall for that kind of rhetoric. And I'm not saying he's the originator of it. He may simply have fell for it. Or, he sees it gets him clicks and things. Now, I'm not going to get into the discussions about everybody's dark web investigations into the so-called Khazarian Mafia. And I'm not saying I'm Mr. Know-it-all, but I have said in the past, I'm very well versed in the, ever since the book that was discussed in the late 1800s, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I've researched the writer of the book and the history of the book, and Adolf was a fan of the book. And anyway, my point was, there's 2 points, and one of them's got to do with Mother's Day, and I'll get to that in a second. The first point is that it is big news that this got picked up by Dershowitz, and he made a complaint to Eric Trump, and he researched himself what was being said. Now, listen, people can get on broadcasts and they can say patriotic things. They can feel they are a super patriot in their heart and be very passionate about it. They can profess that they're born again Christian, which I've heard this person say he was. They can do all that stuff. But then when you throw what I'll call a political or philosophical stink bomb in there about Jewish people, and the most graphic description of how people get that particular hormone we all know about. Okay. And then it starts with A, right? And the last word is chrome. We know that stuff, but he gets into detail, okay? And I've always said, don't take a bath in that stuff. Don't, I talked about Albert Fish, what he did in the 1930s, and his description of his crime was not permitted to be put out to the public because it was so heinous. So for you two people that are trying to get the word out, to be graphic, to get people to, as I was talking about the other day, dress in sackcloth and ashes and beat themselves on the back and lay awake at night with horrible visions, that's not a service. And to put that kind of behavior at the foot at the feet of one group of people, even if you're going to talk about other groups later. As I said, the smoke of Satan gets in the cracks in every institution, every race, creed, and color. He doesn't discriminate. It's all souls to him that he can corrupt and take. So anyway, let me have a sip of my coffee. So Alan Dershowitz said, hey, he's coming to Doral this weekend in Miami or Daytona Beach. I'm sorry. Or it might have been Miami, and this is what this guy's talking about. Well, anyway, Eric Trump said, well, I'll check it out, And the end result was he's disinvited and barred from physically entering the property, him and his entourage. Now, I was talking about that, and I was pontificating on why it was important not to, as I've been saying for well over a year, not to try to pin the blame, cause division on one group of people. Let me just check chats real quick. I might have to say goodnight. No, I'm just kidding. How you doing, Rick? Hi, Doug, Kathy, Lori. Hey, Bubba. How you doing? Ian, Jamie. Happy Mother's Day. Doug says, Happy Mother's Day. That's right. Love them while you got them. Nora, how are you? So that's big news, because I know we got brighter days. Now we got happy days. So what? Now we got two lone wolves. We can't have two lone wolves. There's only one lone wolf. There's lone wolf one. Rubber Toe, Colleen. Boy, everybody jumping in. I was going on and on. Now this is a big deal. Aaron, how are you? That's right. Aaron's usually not able to get into the evenings. Well, we're glad you're here, Aaron. And oh, Marla, I know it seems like yesterday, doesn't it, Marla? But like I said, we're going to have good memories of our moms when we lost our moms. So we're going to give our moms, that those of us who still have our moms, we're going to give them a big smile. Okay, so we can see that beautiful smile come back. I'll just get off this McKay thing for a minute, because I was going to talk about how people were referring the men in women's sports as blackface, and a lot of times you'll see pictures of Al Jolson. And I also mentioned how this comedian in Australia that recently died, who had a character named Dame Edna, and how he did it as performance art and comedy and social commentary and things. He didn't think he was a woman, but he did. That was his shtick. He would dress up like an older woman. And the picture of Al Jolson now on Mother's Day makes me think Al Jolson never tried to hurt or be racist with what he was doing. He did the first talkie movie. The first movie was sound. It was called The Jazz Singer. And his career prior to that was silent movies and vaudeville, where you went around to little towns and got on stages and did your performance, a touring group of people. That was entertainment back then. We didn't have TVs or phones to look at or nothing. You just, hey, vaudeville's in town, or the circus, whatever. Other than that, you're on your own. You had to go pluck it to get box or go down to the creek or do something to entertain yourself. So anyway, Al Jolson, he put on blackface and sang a whole lot of songs, none of them to disparage any race. And one of his famous songs, of course, is April Showers. When April showers come your way, they bring the flowers that bloom in May. So nobody listens to those songs anymore because they equate him with a racism. But let me tell you, he would sing Mammy, and he toured uh, during the Korean War, entertaining the troops, both black and white. Uh, but in his earlier career in the 20s, 30s, he would sing that song, and it would be in mixed audiences. He could go anywhere and perform. Nobody thought badly of him, but there was not a dry eye in the house when he would sing that song. He sang it with passion. He sang it with passion and with heart. And yes, he had his costume on. Yes, he portrayed a minstrel singer, of which there were many that were actually black and actually white that tried to appear black, but they all sang spirituals or country songs or jazz songs. It was a form of entertainment when television didn't exist. So he would sing that part of the song. He'd say, "The sun shines east, the sun shines west, but I know where the sun shines best." Okay, and then you get into Mammy, my little Mammy. He'd walk 1,000,000 miles for one of your smiles, my Mammy. And then he'd get on his knees and say, "Mammy, it's your baby boy." He'd beat his chest. "I'm coming home, Mammy. Don't you recognize me, Mammy?" Which a lot of mothers uh, broke down crying because their sons would, after they came home from World War I, we're talking 1917, they didn't recognize their sons. They'd be chubby, gangly boys. They get drafted and they're gone for 2 years, and they come back and they're half a foot taller and they've lost all that baby fat on their faces. And their mothers would, and when he would go, "Don't you recognize me, Mammy? It's your baby boy, your baby boy." Everybody in the theater would be crying, and he sang the song with passion. And it is such a shame that this cancel culture long ago got a superb performer like Al Jolson and shoved him in the closet and shut the door and locked it and threw away the key. But even Judy Garland, who many of us remember, we were young. One of the first fantasy movies we ever saw, Wizard of Oz. She sang "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," right, way up high, and Judy Garland, she had the highest respect for Al Jolson. She said he taught her so much about the entertainment industry and how he would actually physically get sick before performance because he was so nervous, stage fright. But once he got up there, he would bust loose and perform like no other. So if anybody ever gets a chance to see him perform in older videos and things, and you could put away the hatred that people think that Get Up evokes, and just look at it from a person who's trying to entertain. There are very few entertainers that could match up to Al Jolson. He's in that top tier. And anyway, so oh, wait a minute, I got a notice. Lone Wolf Cindy. Lone Wolf Cindy. Okay. Yeah. There you go. I think it will work now. I won't be someone anymore. That's right, Lone Wolf. Thank you so much on the Buy Me a Coffee. I appreciate it. Was it when I was singing "I Walk 1,000,000 Miles for One of Your Smiles"? So anyway, so that's some memories from old time where my father would tell me. We would watch things like Judy Garland and musicals from the 30s. And so And it being Mother's Day, and that being back in the day, that was the song, no matter whether you were black or white. And there was not a dry eye in the house. So anyway, now I get back to this, what I call an upheaval, a very interesting development with this person being barred from Trump property. And I haven't seen repercussions of it. Now, I did, in fairness, say, well, let me go watch one of his latest broadcasts, his last broadcast. Maybe there's something there I can polish up, or maybe Dershowitz was too rough on him. I don't know. So let me watch it. I couldn't get through it. And I'm tolerant. I've heard the lizard people stuff. I've heard many, many, many things. Okay. The lizard people in the Arctic. I've heard about Hitler going to Argentina in a submarine. I've heard space creatures. I've heard Bigfoot. I've heard it all. I have friends who are very much into that sort of thing. So we were going, having to listen to all that. But he got into, at the beginning of his show, where he was, I'll have to say, screaming into the microphone. When are people going to do something? And insightful speech, okay? That people are sitting on their rear ends, and we're going to lose our lives. We're gonna lose not just our country. And okay, and the other stuff that I brought up and Dershowitz brought up. So no, that's not acceptable. It's not an intelligent way to get people to look at what we're going through. I'll talk about some of the issues that are going on right now. We're seeing it. Mr. T and company has opened the door for people to look at rank and open criminality that's easy to talk about, that doesn't make us look like lunatics. There are evil people that do evil things, and they're in high places, and we're going to get them. But right now, we just want the average Joe and Jane Schmo to know that we've got a criminal enterprise, okay? And then we can get into the advanced teaching later. So my last broadcast, I was getting ready to discuss another thing that I thought was very important. Besides this, what I'll say, earthquake in the so-called intel community. Just what I figured. That kind of talk, fantastic talk. How many times have you all heard me say it? Fantastic talk was going to come back and bite us. Well, it came back and bit this person, and haven't heard a peep at them in 6 days. I don't know how they're going to handle this, or how they're going to repair themselves, if they can even do that. But the point that I was trying to get to, and I was trying to pace myself because I get upset on certain subject matters, and it's difficult for me to physically talk. And as I said, many of you spotted that in the past. But this business of that type of, quote, entertainment or information or intel, okay, especially when it's divisive of groups or religions, is the same thing that led to tens of millions of people losing their lives in World War II, most notably. And as a young boy, my mother told me that, listen, she was 8 years old when Hitler put a bullet in his head, okay? And the war ended. Her entire life, she was raised under a Nazi regime. In the past, I've told you all that my grandmother lived through two Kaisers, two governments, two monarchies, in other words. Last one being Kaiser Wilhelm. She lived through the Weimar Republic after World War I. She lived through the Nazi reign during World War II. And she lived through the Democratic Republic of Germany, the eastern side of the divided Germany. So she lived through half a dozen governments and 2 world wars and raised 12 kids. Back when we didn't have electricity, okay? When you want to cook your food, you better go get some wood. Or if you wanted to start a fire, you got mad when they turned the Deutschmarks into 1 coin because you didn't have paper to start your fire with. That's how worthless the money was. But anyway, my mother told me a lot of how the loss of civility and the singling out of groups of people destroyed the society and ended up almost totally destroying the German nation. And that's why when I hear that kind of stuff coming out of him or anybody else, I'm just like Dershowitz. It makes me sick to my stomach. And I've gone over it and rehearsed to myself where I can talk about it without getting distraught. But hey, it happens in the blink of an eye. The collapse of a civil society. Looking back, you go, wow, that was quick. And part of my sensitivities right now is that I've told you all about some interactions I've had with younger people. Not a whole lot younger. But they're dismissive of the prior generations. They think they know it all. And I remember when my mother was in the last months of her life, I didn't know that at the time. I always held out hope to the very last day and hour, but she started talking about her memories from the war. And as she said, she's gone through things and seen things no human being should have to go through and see, especially an 8-year-old child. So anyway, it came back to her late in her life. And I came to visit. I did every day. And she said, I'm talking about things nobody cares about anymore. Nobody remembers and nobody cares about. And, I said, no, Mom, people still care. What you remember is important. I said, no, but there's other things right now in this time of your life to look back and look forward to. Trying to get her mind off the war. But that came to my mind the other day, what she said to me when I was talking to somebody who was, younger, another generation back. And they kind of made fun of what I was saying. They said, it's kind of like the father in The Simpsons saying, when I wore onion on my belt, which was the look back in the day, when I'm talking about things like I'm talking about now, war and the destruction of civil society, they're dismissive of it. And I talked in my last broadcast and with Nikki last night. I said, we all talked about how they've gone from having to work the soil and break a sweat, just as Adam and Eve were told for their original sin. That's what they would have to do, to getting a latte when they pick up a little plastic thing that glows and dial in, and they don't have to do anything. And they look back at what we talk about, what my mother talked about, what my mother has to say, what my mother can impart through me and her memory. They dismiss it. Well, I remember. That's what I have in my title. And hey, in a way, it's fitting. It's Mother's Day, and I can talk about it today instead of the last time I tried to talk and broach the subject. People that talk in the manner, the fantastic, aggressive manner, blaming certain people like Scott McKay has done in the past, are part of the reason my uncle at 12 years old got a anti-tank contraption shoved in his arms, and he got pushed towards the front because he was 12 and he never made it back. And the kids, little boys that were too scared and turned around and ran home to their mothers, they got caught. And I'm not saying this to gross people out. I'm saying it as a fact. And you can look at the history books. They hanged them at the nearest tree or lamppost. 12-year-olds. People that talk like that are the reason my mother didn't have nothing to eat. When the GIs came to liberate the town and village she lived in, one of them gave her an orange. She'd never seen an orange. She ate it peel and all. 8 years old. The war effort took away everything they had except the family cow. That was against the law to take. I've talked about that in the past. They had no fabric for clothing. The fields were all but bare. Nothing to wear, nothing to eat. And soldiers tromping through your town. They made everybody get in a troop transport. And if you were over 14, you had to walk through Dachau or Auschwitz, whatever was closest. There were many camps, not just Auschwitz. My mother was too young, but she had to go. She didn't go in, she had to ride. Because, these in the hinterlands, people didn't have cars. People didn't have trucks. And the mother and my grandfather, that's another story. I will get upset if I talk about that, but I might drop a dime here in a little bit. But they had to go walk through those camps and see the bodies and see what happened. But the little ones would stay, back in the truck. But can you imagine being 8 years old and seeing your older brothers and sisters, your mother, walking past soldiers with rifles, making them get up in the back of the truck, riding, however long it was, half hour and to an hour in a troop transport, and then have to walk through a camp.
So now I could care less about whether Scott McKay rehabilitates himself. I hope he does. I hope he re-examines what he's been telling people, re-examines what kind of method he's been employing to keep the machine going. I got to buy me a coffee. That's it. Anyway, so that's why it's important. And if I don't repeat my mother's words, if I don't repeat my grandmother's experiences that my grandmother told my mother, that my mother told me, nobody will. So, and somebody like Alan Dershowitz, who's in his late 80s, probably has much closer and prescient memories than any of us. And he's Jewish. He may have overly used the Nazi word discussing Scott McKay. I thought that was a little too rough. But that's what you asking for when you speak in that manner and you stoke people up with their passions and you tell horror stories. When I could tell a story just like I did about Albert Fish, I didn't get into details, as I said before in the past. I was not trying to be funny by any stretch of the imagination. I was saying, I said, what do some of these people want? A recipe book from Albert Fish? How much detail do they want? How much of a bath do they want to take in horrible things? And what good are they? What good is anybody if they get themselves whipped up to such a state they can't go to sleep? Or when they do try to tell their friends, they're in sackcloth and ashes and crying and pulling their hair out. And as I said in the past, you got to get up, you got to march, you got to go forward. You got to tell people in a way that will bind us, make us stronger, and make us stand up for what's right, not crumble in fear and misery. So yeah, even with those memories that I'm telling you about, if my mother was with me here today, I wouldn't talk about it with her. I would do what I said at the beginning of the broadcast. I would smile. And I would try to see my mother smile. I'd walk 1,000,000 miles for one of her smiles. Okay, the sun shines east, the sun shines west, but I know where the sun shines best. So, folks, that's the talk about that. So we can't let the past wither. As I was listening to a rabbi, everybody talks about Aristotle and all these minds and things, but what are the thoughts that move the world? The words that are passed on from generation to generation and taught to children directly, not through history books to other children just for knowledge's sake, but like Abraham, like Moses, like David, theological prescient things that have to do with our spirit that we pass on to keep our society strong, to keep our faith strong, so that we know the story of Abraham, so we know the story of Moses, so we know the story of the children of Israel. And that's another thing about this type of broadcasts, like I was discussing, where they get into space battles, that there are galactic organizations, these powers in the firmament and the heavens that are never mentioned in the Bible, but these people are getting people to get upset and worried about things that are contrary to the dogma of the church. Don't take up your precious time with that. Your spirit has energy. Your mind has power. And it's a gift. It's a gift from God in your heart and in your mind. And don't drain that power worrying about some internet twit that's talking about fantastic stuff. And the reason I'm saying this, because I don't care for name calling, but I did it just now, and I'll tell you why. I heard this person say that they witnessed a galactic battle. Okay, so it's a little. I want to be with people that tune in that have a good heart, and that may be misguided. And I used to watch a lady named Billy Bean, and she would repeat McKay and other people that I won't give credit to, won't talk to. I'm talking about him just because he was barred from Trump property and disavowed. Okay, and rightfully so. But I want people to listen and please consider. As I've said in the past, everything that has happened or ever will happen is in that book, in the good book. And don't be tempted to get your mind involved, your spiritual strength involved with fantastic fantasy items or science fiction items when you haven't even taken the time to read the book. It'll do you much more good to focus on and cogitate in a theological manner the meanings of the words, because one parable, one story will have multiple meanings and impact on your life. It's a forever book. The bestseller. Okay, so everybody wants to talk about, oh, I'm the bestseller on so-and-so New York Times list. The Bible is the bestseller every year. Every year it tops every book. If you took all the commercial books cumulatively, one book beats them all. Sold more than all the books that's published every year cumulatively is the Bible. But how many people crack it open? That's the key. And how many people read it with an open heart? I will tell a story right now. I feel I'm strong enough to tell it. And, I don't, I guess talking about family issues and stuff, I'm in an open situation like this. I have to be, think about my family's, this is about my mother. She was not feeling well. I remember she told me, she came by my office to see me. I said, how you doing? And it was weird. It's like, she didn't come by. And I said, what's going on, Mom? She said, I don't feel good. I'll never forget that. My mother never complained about physical problems. Never. And I'll never forget. I mean, I felt the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I was like, what? I've never heard that. I was a grown man. And to make a long story short, this is almost 20 years before she passed. she went to the doctor, and I won't get into too much detail except to say that she did have a large tumor in her lung, and it was as big as my fist. I'm not kidding you. I held the X-ray up, I put my fist up there, and uh, anyway, we were very, very distraught, to say the least. And mom went back after her diagnosis. She went to lay down, and me and dad were in the living room. She couldn't hear us, and we were like, "Oh my God, why are we go?" That's when we on the way home we're going, "No, we'll it'll be okay. Everything will be fine." When she went and laid down, and we shut the door and went on the other end of the house, we're both going, "Oh my God, what are we going to do?" And dad grabbed the book, okay, and I was there. I saw it with these two eyeballs. He opened the book. He was staring at the wall. He had the book at chest level. He was staring upwards towards the wall. And he took his finger and he plunked it down on the page. And he looked down at where his finger landed. And he said, "You won't believe, oh my God, come here, look, 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 look." I jumped up out of my chair. I watched his finger. He did not move it. And she shall be saved. That's what his finger landed on. God gave us comfort that day. And even back then, my father's Bible had dog ears. A lot of dog ears. Somebody else told, and I guess I'll tell it because it sounds good. I was there. I was there. I was breaking up, and I was distraught, and I was in tears. Not after I saw where my dad's finger landed. So I don't think I could have made it through this far into these types of conversations Friday anyway. So maybe things are were meant to be that way. Maybe I needed a couple of days and a special time of Mother's Day to give me strength where I wouldn't have a uh, hard time, forming words and stuff. So that's a little something about me that many of you don't know. Uh, and now you know. Now you know. So anyway, all the news, I've taken up everything with my personal uh, discussions, but I hope that they give you a perspective. And when you hear people, they think they're trying to help the movement or buck people up. Always remember that the road to you know where is paved with good intentions. It's your actions that count. Oh, Melvina, I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh my goodness. Well, we're thinking about you. It seems like these things come in waves. I know I lost my parents. Everything was a shock. Each time there was a situation like that, you can never be ready for it. Thank you, Gary. I see you paid a visit to the coffee shop. I appreciate it very much. Very much. And I gotta say something that I told you the story about the man who was in a bad mood for a long time, who used to be fun, used to be friendly. He lost his son in a wreck, and he spoke with an older woman one day. She took him aside, and he said, "Well, he'd come see her later, or call, give her." She said, "No, I want to talk to you now." And he changed after they talked, and he was a brighter person. He always looked like his blood pressure was up. I mean, his face was reddish. He scowled. He never smiled. But after that talk, I'm not kidding you. His complexion was better. His attitude was better. He was a much better person. And many of you may remember the story where she told him that every now and then God plucks a rose, and it's not up to us. Every now and then God plucks a rose. And I see everybody that shows up in these chats as a potential rose in my life. And I don't know when God's going to want to pluck a rose. And hopefully he wants to see this particular garden and our friends and family members grow and flourish. But with me sometimes, like Friday night, maybe I got a little prickly. But then again, we've got to remember every rose has its thorns, right? But like I said, maybe this was the best way to go, so we could reflect on events. We could share things theologically. We could think about our Lord. We could think about our lives. We could put things in perspective. We can give each other strength and comfort. And like I said, for those of you who don't have your mother anymore, think about her and smile. And those of you who have your mother, smile, give her a big smile so she'll smile back. Okay? So anyway, folks, I'm coming up on my hour. I know, Velveeta, it's tough. Yeah. With Mom, she had 12 brothers and sisters. 11 brothers and sisters. And okay. All right, guys. You guys stay strong, and we will get together. I'm thinking about doing, I have to figure out how I'm going to do it. I'll do a brief live on this platform, Utizzle. And now I have to think about how I can set something up where we can all jump ship and go to Bumble. And I'll put a link in somehow where I won't get in trouble. Other big platforms do it and get away with it, but little ones, sometimes they get in trouble. Okay. So, but hey, once you guys get the link and I do get in trouble, you'll know where I'll be, right? I'll be on Bumble. And I'm tired of playing the games. I'm tired of trying to play around with my words, but I have to keep trying on Utizzle because there's other potential roses out there, other potential people that we can bring in that may be not looking at things in the proper light, and we can help. And if somebody comes in the chats that doesn't agree with us, hey, let them vent a little bit, as long as they're not foul mouthed or just playing games and trying to be insulting to be funny. If they truly feel that Mr. T's bad, and hey, give me a shot at him, right, guys? You guys look at them like a child that has been taught the wrong way. That you never want a child to stumble, right? You don't want a child to be tricked into going somewhere that's dangerous or bad for them. Look at each person in that way, as it says in Corinthians. You look in the mirror, you see a child. We throw away the childish things, okay, as we grow up. But anyway, a lot of people haven't. So we're going to keep on going and keep on trying to reach out. So I would start a live stream on Utizzle, have one set up in Bumble that I'll have a link for. And then I'll say, okay, after about 20 minutes or a half hour here, I'm going to say, okay, everybody, I'm going over to Bumble. The link's in the description. If I could do that, get away with it, I will do it. But then I'd have to set up 2 live streams, do all this, do all that. But hey, I'll get energy from somewhere, right, guys? You all have a great night. And all you moms out there, thanks a lot. All of us would walk 1,000,000 miles for one of your smiles. Okay, so y'all have a great night. Thank you for spending your precious time with me. This is Mountain Man, over and out.